Now, we all know that you're supposed to plan for retirement eventually, but the thing is, if you don't do it while you're working, then there might not be much for you to live your retirement life on. Now, to talk more about this, I want to bring in Larry Swedroe. He's the author of Your Complete Guide to a Successful and Secure Retirement. Larry, what are top three mistakes that people make when it comes to planning for retirement?
Well, one is a problem we're faced with today, which is that the people look at the historical evidence on returns, and stocks have gotten 10% and bonds, let's call it roughly 6. So a typical 60-40 portfolio, it earned about 8.5. And in the last 38 years, it earned over 10%. Well, today you simply can't get there because stock PE ratios are twice roughly what they were. What's called the cyclically adjusted Cape 10 is now 35 or 36. Historically, it's been about half of that. And yields on bonds are close to zero. So we think that's a real problem for people, is overestimating the expected returns they're likely to get. And then the second related problem is they tend to ignore sequence risk, which is even if stocks get, say, 8 or 10% a year, if you get hit with a 2008 or 2000 to 2002 where markets just crash in the first year or two, and you think you can withdraw, say, 4 or 5% a year safely, adjusted for inflation, that could blow up in your face because the losses happen and you're withdrawing from a portfolio and you can't recover. I would say those are probably the two biggest mistakes that people make.
All right. So if you're talking to people in their 20s or 30s, Larry, shouldn't the discussion be, instead of you need to save 3 to 4 million at the end of this to live, shouldn't we change that to how much are you going to need a month in income? And then how do we create a portfolio that kicks that off? Because I know, look, I'm going to use the A word, annuities. People hate them. But toward the end of all of this, you're going to annuitize some of it. So isn't that the discussion we should be having with younger people as they plan forward?
Generally, I would say that's correct. And a good rule of thumb today used to be able to think of a 4% rule. So if you had $1 million portfolio, you could start off safely withdrawing $40,000 a year. For the reasons I gave earlier, I think that number has to be 3%. So if you got $1 million, you got 30,000. Say you and your spouse were working, so Social Security might get you another 40. That's 70. If you can live on 70,000 a year, well, you're in good shape and you don't need to take a lot of risk. If you're not there, then you need to figure out what rate of return I need to generate from my earnings and savings that will allow me to get there. Specifically addressing your annuity question, I would say annuities can certainly be helpful and they're underutilized, but the problem is they are oversold. The only kind of annuity I think people should buy is what's called a single payment annuity that guarantees a payment. And I think the only kind people should buy are deferred annuities, which means you don't buy the annuity for starting on day one unless you're already much older, but you might be 65 and buy an annuity, say, that begins at age 80 or 85. It's like planning to, when you buy insurance on your car, you don't buy insurance for the oil change, you budget for it. You don't buy insurance for minor repairs on your house, you have a deductible. You want to buy the insurance against living longer than expected, so why pay the insurance premium company a profit for a period you should be budgeting for? So in my mother's case, for example, my mother-in-law, we bought an annuity that started at age 85. We budgeted up to that, and then turned out she lived to 96, and we got a great return on that investment. And if you die early, you didn't need the money anyway.
Well, Larry,
level of flexibility.
Well, Larry, it's great that you use the example of your mother-in-law, but what about people who are like, look, we just went through the shutdown. I need all of my paycheck right now just to survive. I don't really have an extra for retirement in X number of years. What are some of the consequences of not planning for retirement? Does it go as far as depression, divorce? Just tell us what the risks are if we don't actually make the time and put the money aside.
Yeah, well, it's not only the money, it's planning to have a life in retirement. And that's why the first chapter in my new book is planning a life in retirement, having nothing really to do with the financial aspect of it. Sadly, people, everyone plans for a wedding, a vacation, but so many people fail to plan for their retirement, having a life. And if you don't plan to include things that will give you what I call a reason to get up in the morning, something that allows you to be fulfilled emotionally, connected socially to your friends and society, and having a sense of accomplishment, most of us get at least some, if not all of that from our work. When that stops, now you don't have that. So it's really critical. And sadly, the statistics show this. The highest divorce rates are recently retired men, and the highest suicide rates are recently retired men. And so it's really important to figure out what's important, what gives you pleasure in life, whether it's being a candy striper at the hospital, taking college courses, learning a new language, learning a new skill, whatever it might be. It can't be going out and playing golf every day. That'll last for a couple of months, and then you don't get that fulfillment that you got from your work. So it's really critical.
I totally know what you mean. Okay, so no golf for retirement. I don't really know how to play golf, so we'll leave it at that. But Larry Swedroe, thanks so much.